All right, so for the last couple that we're going to do, how far are we into this? Okay, so for the last couple that we're going to do, I'm kind of irritated because I just recorded and at some point I accidentally hit pause. So I've got to redo this. Anyway, so what I have is, I've already written down the stuff on the left over here. So if you're wondering where I'm getting the stuff from, that's where I'm getting it from. So, oh goodness, hang on. That was a trauma. See, I told you I was done. Okay, so I am going to zoom in on this thing and just realize that this stuff over here on the left, I have written down. So I'm not just pulling this stuff randomly out of here. So what I have first is f plus g at -2. So if I look at, let's go to green. If I look at f plus g at -2, remember what that really means is f of -2 plus g of -2. So I'm going to find f of -2. So let's make him blue. So if I go to -2, well, where is it on f, which is the blue function? It produces a 4. So the point -2, 4 is on f. Okay? Plus, if I go to -2 on g, which is the purpley pink thing, that's going to give me a -1. So the point -2, -1 is on g. And now when I do what the signs say, I get 4, oops, sorry, I just told you what the answer is. I get 4 minus 1 is 3. So I get an answer of 3. Do not multiply that by -2. So the next thing I want to look at is what happens if I have f minus g at -1. So we're going to go back to green. So I have f minus g at -1. So what that really means is f of -1 minus g of -1. So I'm going to erase this stuff and we're going to go to -1. So if I look at -1, well, what's my coordinate on f at -1? It's -1. Okay, minus, what's my coordinate for g at -1? It's -2. So remember, you're reporting back your y coordinates. So that gives me a -1 plus 2, which gives me a 1. Okay, that gives me a 1. So looking now, again, I'm going to finish up with C and D. So that is so not what I went to do. All right, so what I, oh, dang. All right, so what I have then, good grief, hang on. All right, what I have is, there we go. All right, I hit the Wi-Fi button by accident. Okay, so what I have now is fg of 0. So if I look at, in green, if I look at f times g at 0, what that means is f of 0 times g of 0. So what is f of 0? F of 0 means I look for the y coordinate on the blue thing when x is 0, and that's 0. And then look at your y coordinate on the pink thing, which is -3. So the point 0, 0 is on f, and 0, -3 is on g. Well, 0 times -3 is 0. And then the final one that we're going to do is f over g at -1. So that's the same thing as f of -1 over g of -1. So what is f of -1? Well, let's go back here. At -1, f has a value of -1. Or positive 1, good heavens. Positive 1, okay? At g of -1, I get an answer of -2. Okay, so f of -1 is 1. G of -1 is -2, so I get an answer of -1/2. Okay, so let's see what else we've got going here. Interesting things. Okay, so again, this is going to be the same type of thing, so I'm going to do the first one for you. So it says if x is -2, well, I'm just looking at the top row. If x is -2, then tell me what f plus g of x is, f minus g of x is, f times g of x is, and f over g of x is. So when I snip this thing, what I have is I am looking when x is -2. So here's where x is -2. And my values for f of x and g of x are 0 and 5. So f plus g at negative 2 is actually going to be 0 plus 5, which is 5. Okay? And then f minus g at negative 2, okay, come here, f minus g at negative 2 is going to be, so now I'm doing this one, okay, same numbers. So now I'm going to have f minus g at negative 2, so that's going to be 0 and 5. So 0 minus 5, which is negative 5. Okay, so all I'm doing is pulling off of this up here. And then I'm going to have f times g at negative 2. So this is this one. F times g at negative 2, well, f of negative 2 is 0, and g of negative 2 is 5. So that gives me 0. And then I'm going to have f over g at negative 2. So that gives me 0 over 5, which is 0. Okay? Remember, 0 is undefined if it's in the denominator. Your fraction will be undefined if 0 is in the denominator. So I'm going to let you do this row and this row and this row. You're just going to look at these two numbers, these two numbers, these two numbers. Add, subtract, multiply, divide. Okay? So let's see what else we've got because I'm looking for composition functions. All right, so here we go. You come back down here. All right, when I am looking at this, I see the composition of f and h at 7. The composition of f and h at 7. So one of the things is if you were given a number right here, I can hop backwards. So I have a number. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that 7 into h. Put the 7 into h. So what is h? H is, so put the 7 into h. So that gives me negative 7 plus 4, and that gives me a negative 3. So now that you know what this part is, I've got the composition of f and h at 7. I just figured out that this part is actually negative 3. So I did that first part. Now I'm going to hop backwards again, and I'm going to put that negative 3 inside of f. So here's f. So I've got f of negative 3 is going to be 4 times negative 3 minus 1, which is negative 12 minus 1 is negative 13. Okay, so what did I just do? Let me rewrite because it went kind of messy. What you have is, if I zoom in on this thing, can I go this way? No, I cannot. Okay, so unzoom. Okay, what I have is f, the composition of f and h at 7. So I plopped 7 into h, and that gave me a negative 3. So this part turned into a negative 3. Then I said, okay, what is f of negative 3? And that gave me a negative 13. So you just hop backwards. So put 7 into h, then put the negative 3 into f. So hop backwards. Okay, so let's look at a couple more. So now I've got the composition of f and h at negative 2. So the composition of f and h at negative 2. So because I have a number, I've got the composition of f and h at negative 2. I'm going to hop backwards and I'm going to put negative 2 inside of h. So what is h? H is negative x plus 4. So h of negative 2 is going to be negative 2 plus 4, which is 2 plus 4, which is 6. So now that I have the 6, I'm going to hop backwards and put that 6 into f. Hop backwards and put the 6 you just found into f. So f of 6 is going to be a negative 2 times 6 minus 1, which is a negative 13. Okay? So let's try it again. And what I have is, the tables gives them selected order pairs for the function of f and g. So I'm going to look at this. It says find the composition of f and g at 4. Okay, so this time the work is actually done for you. It looks more complicated, but it's not. So what I have is the composition of f and g at 4. So I've got a number, hop backwards. So put 4 inside of g. So when I do that, I find out that if I put a 4 inside of g, it spits out a 5. If I put a 4 inside of g, it spits out a 5. So this part turns into a 5. So now I need to know, hop backwards and put that 5 into f. So let's go looking and say, oh, okay, here we go. There's an x of 5 in f, and it spits out a what? 7. Okay, it spits out a 7. So I get 7 for an answer. So just for kicks, because I'm looking at this, let's try something else. Let's try the composition of f and g at 14. Okay, let's try the composition of f and g at 14. So I'm making up a problem. Ignore this one. Oops, sorry. Hang on. Wrong color. Okay, so ignore this one. And I'm going to tell you, let's do the composition of f and g at 14. So what am I going to do first? I'm going to put 14 inside of g, and I'm going to see what pops out. So 14 inside of g is going to pop out an 11. When I put 14 inside of g, it gives me an 11. So this portion right here just changed into an 11. So now I'm going to find f of 11. So come over here, and then let's go find an 11 for f. So if I shove an 11 into f, what pops out? A 9. Okay? So all I'm doing is just looking and plopping this number right here into g and find it, and then plop it into f and see what spits out. And so that is the rest of section 2.8.